Yeah, so just for fun, here's a few things about me. I'm 33. I've never had what people refer to as a girlfriend. DoorDash is about as prestigious as my job title gets, though that's like way more lucrative than you might think. All of my friends are online friends, and I know a lot of you guys know that stuff already, but I'm just saying it in case like anybody new is watching. But yeah, like, people would probably refer to me as like a failure or, something similar to that. Like, I'm not into stamp collecting. I just hang out behind my bloody door. Like, if there were anyone that you wanted to sort of like compare your life to like, feel better about yourself, I'm probably your guy. There's this sort of like self-help thing that's like exploded in popularity over the past 5 or so years. And, like I'm totally into that sort of thing myself. Like, sort of the whole idea of like improving myself or whatever. But, I don't think I'm like the only one that sort of had the thought at some point, like God, I must suck. I should totally like try to make myself better or something. Because, I don't think that my situation is like all that uncommon. In fact, I kind of think that like people like me are exactly why the self-help genre became so like popular, But, I sort of realized at some point, like, I have a pretty good cardio now. I can totally sort of like cook spaghetti squash. But I'm still kind of like exactly where I've always been, none of this stuff really made my life any more interesting. So, maybe there's something going on here that like, jogging in like 95-degree heat can't like solve. There's this interview somewhere on YouTube with Tom Brady, and in the interview he was talking about like even despite the fact that like at that point he had won like 3 Super Bowls, like he still kind of felt like unsatisfied with his life, like he was saying like, is this it? Like is this all there is to life? And just for like years after I saw that, like what he said just sort of like stuck with me, because it's just so like the opposite of what you would expect. Like here's this guy who's probably accomplished more than anybody will ever accomplish in their lives. Even among like NFL players, like he's sitting here saying that he's like unfulfilled by, what he's accomplished in his life. Like if Tom Brady himself is like saying that he's like unfulfilled, like, what chance do I stand at fulfillment then? Yeah, and I mean, it's not just like Tom Brady like saying these things, but, sometimes YouTubers and stuff will like, they'll make these videos where they're like, oh, I've accomplished nothing in my life. I'm such a failure. But then you look and it's like, dude, you have like 1 million subscribers. Like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, what's going on here? There's this old school YouTuber called Charlie Is So Cool Like, who I never really watched that much of, but I was just sort of like tangentially aware of his presence. Like back in the days when I was doing Hey Major 7th, which, that was like my music channel that I used to do like 9 years ago or something. Yeah, but recently the algorithm, like it started recommending one of his old videos called Dear Future Charlie, where he's sort of like talking to himself in the future, which would now be like the present day. And, the video just sort of like hit me, because like I think he existed in sort of like a similar like spiritual space that I existed in back then that like I just totally sort of forgot was there, And when I saw it, it opened that whole world back up in my head, like it had been closed down for a while for repairs, but somebody like snuck in and like turned all the rides on again. And it was just like, hey, yeah, totally forgot about this place. Yeah, and so I went to his channel just to like see what he was up to these days. And like, maybe I'm being unfair. Like, maybe he like genuinely wants to do what he's doing now. But he had this new video after like a year after not making videos, where he was just he was promoting this like new show that he was doing or something, where he was like one of the head writers or something. And like I hate to say this, and like if by some chance you're watching this, Charlie, like I'm sorry, but there was just nothing exciting about the show to me. Like, maybe I'm in like the wrong demographic or something, but it just struck me as one of those sort of things that like maybe you watch once if somebody's like forcing you to, but you just like totally forget about it afterwards. And I mean, like, if anything, he kind of looked a little depressed in the video. Like, I almost got this vibe like he was sort of saying like, sorry guys, not Charlie anymore. Like this is just some person who I've become. And, it's possible that I'm just sort of like unfairly like projecting that onto him. But that's just the sense that I got from the video. And I just started thinking like, why does that happen, Like, why does it seem like people sometimes just, like, completely fucking forget who they are? Nostalgia's a weird thing. and it makes people do weird things. Like I think a lot of people sort of interpret nostalgia as like just some sort of like good time from your past that you like can't ever get back to. Like, sort of like a bittersweet feeling. And it's rational to think something like, it's too painful to sort of like dwell on this person that I can't be anymore. So, maybe I should just rip this part of myself off to just like move on. But I kind of feel like that's how you end up with a situation like Charlie's, Like, I feel like if you asked him, he would probably say something like, oh, that's not me anymore. Like, he probably sees himself as a grown-up now that doesn't do like childish YouTube things anymore. Like, he makes real movies now with real world actors. But like, I feel like if you got him to be like really honest about it, like I think he kind of wants to be the old Charlie again. Like, and like that Dear Future Charlie video, that was probably like really depressing to him. But I kind of feel like that's just like the wrong way to interpret things, because I don't think that nostalgia should be interpreted as like something that you've lost and you can't get back. But I think it should be seen as like a reminder of like who you like truly are underneath everything. Like it's literally like you reaching across time and space, like shaking you by the shoulders, like, dude, what the hell are you doing? This is how magnificent you are. Don't you remember? Like, I think nostalgia is like a way more profound feeling than we give it credit for. And, of course, people change and evolve. And, like, I'm not saying that people should try to, like, recreate the past, because that's usually a fruitless endeavor. But what I think nostalgia is, like, hinting at is sort of the part of yourself that, like, doesn't ever change, Like, no matter what's going on in your life, like, it's always there, It's just hard to see sometimes because, like, maybe it's being obscured by like a bunch of crud or something. Like, maybe you gained some weight and you like totally lost your mojo. Or, maybe you have some acne that you can't get rid of and it's just like all you can ever think about. But I mean, even despite all of that, like, you're still in there somewhere. It's like, everybody always thinks the current music sucks. But it's only because you're still inside like the crud of the times. It's like, oh yeah, current music sucks. But then, a few years go by and then it's like, the music from that time, like it actually was pretty awesome. Yeah, I mean, you just forgot about all the bad stuff, that's all. And now the only thing left in your memory is the stuff worth remembering. But I've always sort of thought, like, like it's not like the good music didn't exist back then. Like, why should you need time to wipe away the crap, Like, why can't you just see what's worthwhile, like, right now? I mean, it's right there all the time anyway, Like, even in this moment right now, there is a magnificence that we're all just, like, letting fly right over our heads. That, in, like, 10 years, we're all going to be saying, like, hey, there might have been some craziness going on in the world then, but those really were some great times despite everything. Like, how do you capture that, Like, how do you make it so that the feeling of nostalgia is just sort of like the permanent feeling of life? Like, how do you make it so that you can sort of appreciate the current moment in the way that you would appreciate like a good memory? I kind of feel like that would be like the ultimate form of self-improvement. Like, not framing it so much as like, I should go learn archery because I'm not a good enough person, but more seen as like, like removing the crud in yourself and just like revealing the greatness that was always right there anyway. And then, most moments would probably feel pretty fantastic. I just feel like, like the self-help thing, it's so like masochistic. Like, oh dude, I suck so much. I'm so weak and worthless. I have to take a cold shower. Like, no you don't, dude. Jesus. Give yourself a break, man. Like, the statue David wouldn't, like, not be a masterpiece just because it was, like, outside rolling around on the lawn. You could totally hose it off and it would be just fine. Yeah, but I have a few methods I'm working on to make nostalgia the permanent feeling of life. But that's another video for another day. But I can say that it seems to be highly related to the state of your health and in ways that you would just never expect. Yeah, but you're not a failure or, like, a man-child or whatever. There's this YouTuber called Joshua Fluke, who I think is onto something fairly important, which is sort of like calling out the despicable things that go on in like the corporate tech world. And he has this video called The Ultimate Boomer Boss, where it's about this guy that like charges like $600 an hour for some like consulting thing, who he actually seems to be like fairly successful at what he does. Like, he's apparently like the top guy in his field and like, he's making a lot of money or whatever. And I just kind of feel like if you told that guy's story to someone, like, here's this guy who has a consulting firm. He makes $600 an hour, and, he's the top guy in his field. Like, I feel like people would sort of hold that guy in high regard, Like, they'd see him as like a stand-up guy. He'd be seen as like a success in life. PlusNet would never have a reason to disable his laptop. But, he has this like really like outdated looking website, and it just seems like he's completely lacking in self-awareness. And I kind of feel like he's the real failure, Because I feel like just at some point, like, he must have just completely lost track of who he really is. Like, he got buried by a bunch of crud and just like totally lost the plot. Like, there's no way his past self wouldn't see him today and be like, oh God, that's not what I become, is it? Like, please tell me this is just a nightmare or something. It would totally like scare the crap out of him. Because that's not who that guy really is. It's just some person who he's become. And now he's lost in like, corporate Neverland, and he's probably never going to snap out of it. And Charlie, if you're not careful, you're going to end up there too. And, maybe people lose track of themselves because, they're forced to by circumstances, or, maybe they're afraid of being homeless, or, maybe their parents are like pressuring them into it or something. Who the hell knows why people do the things that they do? I actually have a few ideas about that like I might make a video on at some point. But it's like, I don't know why people still think we live in like the 1980s or something. Like, the world that we're living in now is vastly different than it was even like 20 years ago. Paradigms are changing. Like, look at what we have here, Like, I'm talking to you, like, giving you my honest opinions, possibly across the world, possibly across time. Like, maybe you're watching this like 100 years in the future or something. Maybe this video has like 1 million views. Or, maybe it doesn't. But, I'm just some guy with a video camera. Like, I literally could have been homeless and made this video still. Like, how amazing is that, Like, we live in a world where, like, even a homeless person can sort of, like, broadcast their thoughts to the world. When even, like, 20 years ago, like, you would have needed, like, a huge studio and, like, some degree or some nonsense like that for someone to even let you in the parking lot. So, like, chillax, guys. It's going to be okay.